Hello! In this video, we are going to be making adjustable masks with ties. In my previous video, I showed you how to use a bias tape maker to make the ties for these masks. If you need to make the ties yet and want to watch the video, go ahead and pause here and watch that first, and then come back to this video. I have cut my fabric to 6 inches by 9 inches and placed them right sides together. I also have my bias tape ties, which I've sewn together, and I've cut those to 40 inches each. You can use shoelaces or any other kind of tie material you want. Starting sewing, I sew my short edge first, so that 6-inch edge with a 1/4 inch seam. Turning over to the other side, make sure that you leave a good 2 to 3 inches so then you can turn your work when you're done. Moving to the long side, start sewing 1 inch away from the edge. That way you can fit your ties through later. I also do a 1/4 inch seam on this side as well, stopping 1 inch away from that far edge. Repeat on the other side. After your edges are sewn, go ahead and turn your work inside out. I recommend using a chopstick or some other sort of soft-ended tool to push your ends out and your seams. I don't recommend using scissors, as sometimes those can cut the threads or your fabric even and ruin your work. Be careful when you get to the ends that you're not pushing that fabric all the way out, since the edges aren't completely sewn together. But if you do push them out, you can tuck them back in. Speaking of tucking, we're at the ironing step now, so that part where we turned our work, tuck those edges in. That way everything looks nice and smooth and our edges are nice and square. Back at the sewing machine, start by sewing together the area where you turned your work right side out. I try to get as close to that edge as possible. Once done, trim your threads. Then we move on to sewing the pocket where we're going to put our ties. I leave a 5/8 inch seam here and backstitch at the top and at the bottom. Repeat on the other side with the 5/8 inch seam. Next up is the trickiest part for most people. I happen to have a latch hook on hand, so I'm going to use that to thread my ties through. Some people may have just a regular hook to pull their ties through, but use whatever works for you. As you pull your ties through, make sure they aren't twisted inside of that pocket. I like to have the edge where I sewed the bias tape facing up, going towards the back side of the person. And then repeat on the other side. Once your ties are all the way through, make sure that they're centered and even on both ends. We aren't done sewing yet. I like to add a little bit of durability to my masks by centering them on my machine and then just going over that tie. That way they don't fall out in the middle of the wash. That would be really frustrating for a lot of people, especially because the masks that I'm sewing are getting donated to my local hospital and they'll be professionally laundered. So I'm sure that once one of those ties falls out, nobody's going to bother to put it back in. So that mask is basically useless after that. Last step is to tie your ends. I'm using 100% organic cotton, so heating the ends and sealing them isn't an option. I have to tie knots in the very end. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you want to see more of what I do, please hit that like and subscribe button, and thanks for watching.